At $200, a Super Nintendo setup costs twice as much as the old system. For the money, the company promises better pictures, sound, and adventure. Now you're playing with power, superpower. You're the king, I tell you! The king!
Only for Super NES. Only on Super NES. You're listening to the SNES Podcast with your host, Soul Blazer.
Hello, everybody. This is the Super NES Podcast, episode number 244. I am Greg, joined always by Joe.
Hello.
And this time, we're looking at a game that I picked. That's a very unique and interesting title for the console. Really one of the more interesting games on the system, whether for like good or bad, which we'll get into here, like a little bit here. We're looking at a game that's called E.V.O. It's actually spelled E.V.O. because it's an acronym. The actual full official name of the game is E.V.O. Search for Eden. Which was developed by Almanac and published by Enix for the Super NES back in December 1992 for Japan and in July 1993 for North America. Did not get released in PAL lands, it looks like. So anyway, I played this game back when it was new and really enjoyed it. So I was happy for a chance to go back and revisit it. Joe, if I remember correctly, you had heard about this game but hadn't actually played it before the podcast, correct?
Correct. This is absolutely a game I've heard of. I've heard people call this like a hidden gem or underrated.
Sure. I've heard that a lot too, yeah.
And I guess, yeah, to a point, but like, I mean, you go on YouTube and you search this, like there's plenty of videos. I find it hard to believe that this is, unknown and hidden gem. But, yeah, absolutely.
Well, the prices on eBay certainly suggest that the game didn't sell very well because copies of this game do go for like a pretty penny these days. Which we're here toward the end. So,
and I was going to say, I did hear that this did get a very limited print run, which also does not help with that. So, yeah, I expect the prices to be a little exorbitant when we get there.
Well, Enix's American branch was also struggling in this time period. I think there's another reason like why they probably did not make a big print run,
right? Because
the combination of those two things. It's a niche game, and they were struggling, but because I believe they shut down the North American branch the following year or '95, and they wouldn't return to American operations until after they merged with Square years later.
Okay.
So, but anyway, Almanac, the developer, we've already covered in the past podcast. They're the company. So they're the company who was behind another game we've already looked at before in the podcast, as I mentioned, Wonder Project J. So since we've ever done a deep dive into them back then, I won't tread over things again here. Enix, as I already mentioned, published the game. This game is actually a sequel to a Japanese-only game, which came out for the PC 9801, one of the only Japanese only computer systems at the time period, for 1990. I'm not even going to try to say the Japanese name for the game because, but it translates to 4.6 billion year story, the theory of evolution. And that game is interesting in its own right because it's like you can definitely tell how E.V.O. is both the sequel and also inspired by that game. So they made that game in 1990, like I said before. That game's very different. That game's actually more of a tabletop RPG style game where it's like you're playing. The general idea is the same. You're still playing as like a creature evolving yourself, improving yourself through time, and playing through various eras, eras like in eras that were past. But it has a very different story. Like I said, the battles are turn based, like RPG is. The graphics are, of course, like very different. They were assisted by teachers, by teachers like local schools to get information about geology and biology to add some realism to the game. Of course, like of course the game's more fantastical. Like and all that as well too and whatnot. And the game's still pretty well in Japan. Japan, like when it came out, there actually is. I actually did not know this. I found this out while doing research. There actually now is an English translation of that game available as well. So so you can look online, find the emulator, find the program that's already been translated. The game's already been the game. Apply the patch, and there you go. So. If you enjoy E.V.O, checking out the original game is definitely worthwhile. Just be warned, it's a very, very different game because that game's more of a tabletop style RPG. This game, E.V.O, is an action adventure game. It definitely has some aspects of RPG to it, but it plays a very different way. Particularly, this game has a lot of platforming and going through and picking stages on like an overhead map that the earlier game did not have.
Right.
So this game was headed by project director Takashi Yoneda, who had also been the project director behind Actraiser 3 years previously. So if you're noticing similarities or something in common between those two games, that's why, because they do share a little bit of DNA. So some of the staff for this game was the same staff in the original PC-98 title. Others, much of the staff, however, was new hires, a younger, less experienced crew, which now, they stated in an interview years later, made things interesting later in the development process. I'm sure you can probably read between the lines of that, loaded word. So. So anyway, the game itself, like I said before, it's an action adventure game. The general premise is still the same as it was in the earlier game, roughly. You are a creature who has been chosen by Gaia, literally the representation of Earth itself, to go through a series of challenges, evolution, survival of the fittest, etc. And if you succeed in all those challenges, you're able to join her in Eden, the so-called Promised Land. So the game consists of 5 stages. We go through various time periods in Earth's past. You're basically navigating around from area to area, going through platforming sections, defeating enemies. You eat meat from defeated enemies to earn EPs, evolution points, and then in turn you use the evolution points to evolve yourself. And this is definitely one of the things I love. This is definitely one of the things I love about this game, and also what makes it so unique. There are numerous ways you can evolve your creature in this game. It's like no two games are the same because the combination of how you can evolve yourself is so different that and certain stages will benefit very strongly from one build versus another. It's possible to be able to brute force your way through the game no matter what you are. Some of the bosses, for example, particularly a lot of the bosses, if you don't have the right form, you kind of have to cheese yourself to try to defeat that boss and move on. If you get stuck in kind of a form that's not very very advantageous to defeating that boss. And if you want to get, if you want to access the game's final stage and like true ending, you do need to evolve yourself a certain way as the game goes on. However, the combination of all these unique packages do make for a lot of replayability value, and definitely, at least to me, are the game's charm and definitely strongest unique aspect. And the game, besides having a battery backup, which allows you to save your progress, also has slots. I think there's 5 slots that you can dedicate just to saving creatures. So if you want, just there are crystals you can find in the course of the game, where you can just pull up one of your saved forms, and I need to go back to it, which is a nice touch.
Yeah.
But anyway, since it's your first time playing the game, Joe, now that I've laid out the basics, I'm curious to hear what your experience of the gameplay was like.
gameplay loop kind of killed me. This game is very grindy, very, very grindy.
It can be, yes.
Yeah.
I agree with that, but
yeah. So some of the unique aspects of the game I did like. I did like that you have a wide variety of upgradable features. Jaws, horns, your body, shell, hands and feet, dorsal fin, tail, a neck, and back of the head are all options at some point in the game. You don't get all those at one time. Like I said, very grindy, but also, like you stated with the battery backup, it is possible to save up to 50 different evolutions, which is pretty cool. So, I mean, you can play, is the best way to put it, with many different opportunities and unique creations. Getting crystals and being able to get morphing abilities or temporarily morphing into a different creature, getting hints and experience points was a nice little touch, I thought. Boss fights, oh my god.
That's why I said, if you're in the right form for boss, or have the EPs to change, the bosses can be the bosses really in this game are all over the place. They can be stupidly easy. We can chop them like 5 times, like we're done with it.
Yeah.
Or you could be stuck in a loop where it's like you really have to cheese the boss and really practice to be able to finally get enough damage inflicted on him like it would beat him. So
yeah. So I mean, this is going to fall into the category later on in the podcast, but save states are a wonderful thing. So if you go into the boss fight and you are not prepared, which of course you're not going to know until you get there, and you lose E.V.O points, which goes back to what I was saying about it being super grindy. So like you grind and grind and grind, like every thing that you see on the screen that can be eaten needs to be eaten. That is the one thing I learned. Everything.
And you also have to be quick to grab those meats sometimes, because especially bosses, they're not on the screen very long, so it's like you don't rush. Use out a lot of like EPs, which I don't like that part, but it is what it is. Yeah.
I didn't find a lot of the bosses to be too difficult, but that's also because I overgrind for everything. That's any RPG I play. And as you said, you can brute force your way through even if you don't have the proper evolution. I thought that overall, it's hard to explain. So it's it's tedious and strenuous to be, getting the E.V.O points and leveling up and things of that nature. But at the same time, it's also very rewarding, and it's hard to put into words how that is without playing the game.
It's the same typical pleasure you get from grinding JRPG, like watching numbers go up, basically.
Yeah, but it's more than that, because here it's when you change classes in an RPG, because you're literally evolving. And the cool thing is you don't know what you're going to evolve into. You can buy into something, you have an idea of what you might look like, but you really don't know until it does it. So that's all well and good, and I did enjoy those aspects of the game. For the most part, this is, it's kind of a simple game. It's move to the right, move to the left, eat all you can, get your meat, level up, beat the boss, progress. It's simple, but yet complicated at the same time. One of the biggest gripes I had with this game, other than the grinding, there is no invisibility frames. And
yes, yeah.
There were some times when I would get hit, and I would think, hey, it's okay. I'll be flashing, and I'll just go move away. And that wouldn't happen. Instead, I would continually get hit and just end up dead.
But to be fair, that same logic applies to your enemies as well too. So it's like
correct.
Definitely the cheesy way to beat some bosses is just simply just for example, it's like just pin them against the far end of the screen,
Correct.
and just like bite them over and over and over again.
Yes,
so,
yes. So it does work in your favor, as you point out. You are correct. But it's still one of those things where it's like when you're playing a game like this, I don't know, like. Yes, it's an RPG, but like you said, it's like an action platformer. So I expect those frames of invincibility to be there, and have some like leeway, and it just wasn't there. But you know, that's a small gripe compared to, the grinding. I will harp back on that grinding every single time. The grinding killed me. Outside of that, I think overall it's pretty good. The story's kind of basic, you're trying to win the hand of, Gaia, finally work your way through and find out there's this dude, Boblocks, that you gotta go defeat, and he's the final boss, and he is tough as nails. Yeah. But, you beat Boblocks or Bullbox or whatever the hell you call them, and you beat the game. You beat the game, and it's all good. Yeah, this is one of those games where I thank Greg for pointing this game out and having us play it here on the podcast. But spoiler, because we're not to that point yet, I would not recommend this game unless you know what you're getting into and if you like grindy games like this, because there was a lot of frustration on my end, at least playing this. But we'll get there, and I'll talk about some of the rosier points when we get to graphics and sound.
Well, yeah. So I agree with most of what you said. I do think the game can be kind of grindy, but I'd also argue that the game doesn't need to be grindy if you don't care about certain things. For example, if you want to see all all the major forms, then yeah, you are going to need a lot of points. And but it is very possible. Just okay, set up on this. And just go through the whole one or two worlds with it. So the actual, and then also the very first game is also going to be more grindy because after that you'll probably have save forms. The save forms that you can use to recall upon at various points to help save time and then and make future playthroughs go faster because. The average playthrough for this game on YouTube, YouTube is only around for this game from start to finish is only around 3 or 4 hours. So, and the speedrun of this game is 51 minutes, which is very impressive. But, but yeah, so it's if you know what you're doing. Yes, the game can be grindy. I would just argue that it's only as grindy as you want it to be. But I think this game does have some problems and some flaws, but I don't think the grinding is one of them. My biggest complaint about this game, two biggest complaints is that the platform in this game is not very good. The controls are pretty bad. They're sluggish. They're slow. Even when you're playing a fast creature, you don't feel fast at all. Yeah, that's fair. Hit detection is not great. I've noticed. Either on you or the enemies, but considering how much this game requires you to do platforming. The platforming in this game not being good is a real problem with the game, I think. And it definitely is one of the, to me at least, it's one of the weakest points that this game has because you just have to bear it. Yeah. But also, I also find, as Joe mentioned, the gameplay loop can be tedious at times, where even if you know what you're doing, you're still going through. You're still going through cave, overworld, cave. Maybe find a hidden stage and go off to the alien fortress. Then back to cave again. There's not a lot of variety in gameplay here, unfortunately, but. But yeah, to me, those the poor platforming and the very subpar game design are kind of the two biggest weaknesses to me. I still think the game's pros outweigh the cons, but I definitely would be the first to admit, okay, this game does have some serious problems with it.
Right.
And I think that going to the game, knowing what to expect, is something I would 100% agree with.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the more positive things about this game.
Well, the graphics to me are a mixed bag. It's like, a lot of people complain about the graphics, as a matter of fact. They think the graphics are very subpar. I think in some areas I can agree with that, but I think overall, in most stages, the graphics themselves are not super sharp or hard to find, but the overall look in the game for most stages is very pleasing. It's like, the oceans look nice, the caves look like caves. It's like, there's nice detail to everything in the game at least, but it's just that the graphics are not what you expect for an 1993 level Super NES game, for the most part, I think. So I understand what they're talking about, but talking about with that complaint, I just don't fully agree with it.
Yeah, I thought the graphics were pretty good. I actually thought that was one of the higher points of this game. It's got some great parallax scrolling, which I wasn't expecting. And I thought, the backgrounds and everything look great. Yeah, the enemy design is kind of meh, but I mean, technically the character that you're evolving into also kind of looks meh. Like there was some effort put in there. It's just, I personally don't think it was enough effort all around.
Yeah, you can tell this was an inexperienced team programs the system, because I think a more experienced team could definitely have wrangled more out of the hardware than they did. So it's not to the game's detriment. It just just that the game's graphics accomplish what they set out to do. It looks, the Ice Age looks Ice Agey. The ocean stages look oceany. It just they're not great. So.
Yeah. And I think the biggest culprit here, I want to say it was like the Cretaceous era or like the Dino era is what I called it.
The Dino era, yeah.
Yeah. It's very, very simplistic and it's repetitive, and it also has some of the worst music, which does not help. That area in general just really annoyed me.
I actually like the music in this game for the most part. I do agree there's a couple of annoying pieces, but I think overall the musical track fits the theme of the game very well. There's some very lighthearted, silly sounding comico pieces.
Yeah.
For some of the stages.
Yeah.
I don't know if you played these games before, Joe, but the composer for this game was Motai Takanouchi. I know I butchered that Japanese name. Who also did the music for Shining Force 1 and 2 of Genesis.
Okay, so that makes sense, because my notes exactly was that some of the music was okay. Some of it actually reminded me a bit of Echo the Dolphin and some slight Final Fantasy vibes. And the only real criticism I had was like that dinosaur era one where, like I said, it just is. It sounds very simplistic. It gets repetitive, and it's actually annoying because it's like dun 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 dun, and it's like just repeats and repeats and repeats. And it's like after hearing like the first couple levels where it's like this like tranquil music that's fits the mood and everything else. Like I get it. Like I guess the simplistic and repetitive music for the dino stage kind of fits like the caveman like kind of dino thing. Like I kind of get where they were going, it just didn't hit properly. And it's that one level that really kind of did it for me. The rest of the music was fine. But yeah, like I said, I wanted to focus on some of the good stuff because I feel like I was being kind of negative, but like I didn't absolutely hate it.
So there are a lot of like hidden things to find in the games I already mentioned before. It's like, some of the stages of the game you can only access like access a certain creature. For the very best ending, I think you have to be. You can evolve as a human, like the end of the game, but
yep.
they're trying to trying to fight the final boss as one is not recommended for sure, but there are some bad endings you can get in the game if you pick certain dialogue options. There are certain paths you can go down to that result like in some scenes and some text in the game over screen. So I do like that that feature like in the game. Like I said, the game to me, the game's biggest strength, replayability factor, because you have so many combinations of evolutions that you pick from and choose. And you really can make some very interesting creatures. So, the story, as so as it is also very complex and very mature in some areas. I remember being surprised as a kid, for example, during the Ice Age, you kill the Yeti's parents, and then from a kid just is left alone basically just to starve to death, basically. Right. So it's it's a very mature tone to the story. It fits the overall theme about the game for survival, evolution, survival, the fittest, and all that, but for a Super NES game at the start of this time period, in which the game market was still mostly seen, in which the console game market was still largely seen as being aimed toward kids. To see that you see that in this game was kind of surprising.
Yeah.
So there are no cheat codes or hints in this game per se. There are plenty of guides out there that you can get out there to consult. If you want to know, for example, how to evolve into this, or what kind of evolutions are best to access certain areas, like a whatnot. I do appreciate the fact that there's no game over screen. The penalty behind this game is typical to many other RPGs, where we lose half your points, your EP points in this case. So, if you've been sitting up for a while, yeah, frustrating. I do agree with you. Save states definitely help, but it's the game at least is gentle to you in how it presents itself. The gameplay itself is not gentle in areas, but the actual how the gameplay is set up towards you is at least presented in a very nice way. There are some basic tutorial messages that you get at the start of the game to help you out, explain how things work, that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, so a lot of the game is just basically what you make of the game. It's you either can rush, you either can rush through it, or you can take the slow, very careful grinding way through the game, which is the way that Joe sounds like he did it, and which is, to be fair, how many people the first time, how many people playing the game the first time probably approach the game as well too. Yeah. So it's a very unique game. Because of the fact the company that made the game is now bankrupt, I don't know who has the rights to this game anymore these days. It's never been re-released. Probably will never get re-released because it's kind of like a niche game, like I already mentioned before. So if you want to play, you either have to pay the high prices for a cart. We're going to so we're going to price it later on here, or just emulate it. So, but yeah, so. Reviews of this game back then were positive, and reviews of the game nowadays are still generally positive. The harsh review of this game wasn't all game, which only gave 2 out of 5 stars. But GamePro gave it 3.5 out of 5, and Nintendo Power gave 3.6 out of 5, which is more typical. Typical of the scores. In this time period. So IGN. So IGN several years ago rated the game 42nd on this list of top 100 games of the system. So it is very original. I would love to see a modern game like this. Something that incorporates the same basic idea behind the game of evolution, going through. Exploring through different time periods. There are games that touch upon those aspects, but at least my knowledge, there's never been a game come out since then, even in the market, that's really done these same things as well, or at least tried to do them as well as E.V.O did. Yeah. So, I definitely would like to see like a more modern game using some of these aspects for sure, because I think it's definitely one of the things that I enjoy enjoy the game a lot back then, and so enjoy it now. Playing through it again. So yes. In summary, I said before, yes, the game has rough spots. Yes, the game has some serious problems. At least to me, I think the pros of this game that outweigh the cons. It's definitely like a very rough gem, but I think it would for sure. But I agree that and I would generally agree that's a gem on the system. Definitely is worth playing if you enjoy games of this type, or be open to games of this type for sure. But I think your experience overall was a little bit less positive, Joe. But it sounds like at the end that you did. But just sound like at the end that you did, you did overall, like your time with the game.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very unique title. So yeah, I enjoyed what I played. There are some negative aspects, of course, but like any game that you come across, you can find negative aspects. You can find all positive aspects. So, this is what I say. If you like this type of game, or if it sounds interesting to you, pop it in your emulator, check it out. We're going to cover it in a second, but I don't recommend trying to find this physically. But yeah, save states were a godsend. So I will say that, obviously, if you want to, play your way, for one. Two, like, if you really want that hardcore feel, just don't use save states. That's the best thing I can tell you. But yeah, overall, this was a pretty positive experience. Even though it kind of sounded like a downer when I was talking about it, but it's, we've played worse. So there is that.
Okay, yeah. Couple of trivia notes. Back when the game came out, originally 1993, Enix also had a promotional contest where players could send in photographs like their favorite customized creatures for a chance to win like a free game.
Oh, that's cool.
And also some of the pieces for this game have been played at the Game Music Concert Series, Tokyo, Japan. And two of the pieces were also included on like an album, which came out in Japan the following year. So, and there is available on YouTube a rearranged soundtrack for this game also, which sounds very good.
Okay.
I know. So I know you were hit or miss on the music in this game, Joe. But I think that some of the the remix is definitely like a very interesting to listen to for sure.
Yeah, I'll have to check that
out. Anyway, so as I already mentioned, this game got a limited release. It looks like prices for this game, therefore, on eBay are fairly expensive. Let me start. The game is available on eBay. You can find it. It's not one of those like games. It's not one of those games which is like impossible to find. So it's like, I think it's more of a case where it's like the print run may be bigger than it suggests. Prices are high because of the unique demand of this game, and just how generally liked this game is by people nowadays. People don't want to part with the game, and when they do part with it, they want to lay money for it.
That's
I think
fair.
It's more they're more like the explanation, because 25 copies of this game listed on eBay when I did research for it, 33 copies of the game had recently sold. So you can find the game fairly easily on eBay. The problem is the prices. Now, I did not see any repos of this game on eBay as doing research. At least I should say I did not see. I did not see anybody saying this was a repo.
Right.
Usually, when I've done research in the past for Super NES games that have repos, the sellers clearly said that they are repos. None of these had repos listing, so I don't believe repos. So I think either repos of the game don't exist, or they just simply were not listed on eBay at the time of me looking at it, which means probably that they're probably few and far between. That said, I did find one copy of this game that's so recently card only. That's definitely not like a price. price. This copy of the game on cart sold for only $30. So either that's repo that was not disclosed, and the seller knew, the buyer knew that it was a repo, or it's very possible the seller did not realize what they had and listed the game at a cheap price, and somebody came along and snagged up a deal. I mean, like that does happen on eBay. That let's say you find the bargain. So right. I really don't know what to make of that price, but I don't say that did sell at that price, but it's an outlier. Most copies of the game are currently sold anywhere from $160 to $250. So definitely more expensive game. If somebody did snag a real copy of the game for $30, that's a steal. That's a steal of the year.
So looking at the sold prices, I just went through real quick. I saw one sold for $35.99. Now, what makes me fishy about this listing is it's being sold out of Vietnam. So,
most repos come out of,
correct.
Most repos come out of either China or Taiwan. So, I mean, it's possible.
Yeah.
But, like I said, so we are suspicious about the lower prices, but
absolutely.
Most of the car pricing, and therefore I can say the legitimate ones definitely sold for the higher prices.
Yes.
Like 160 to 250, which is definitely one of the most, but not the most expensive Super NES game I've covered here on the podcast. There are some games we've covered that sold for higher prices, but this is definitely well up there. CIB is even worse. CIB copies this game sold anywhere from 400 to 680. So. If you're a collector who wants a complete copy of the game, you really got to be prepared to pay for it. Unfortunately, because they're pretty damn expensive. But is the game worth it? Yeah. So was the game like worth that price? No, not really. But I really would only say buy the game physically if you really insist upon playing it that way, or if you really, or if you're a collector, because this is definitely one of the more expensive Super NES prices we've looked at recently as far as games went. Yeah. But luckily, the game emulates just fine, so it's definitely worthwhile playing it that way instead. But anyway, I think I pretty much. That wraps up everything I had to say about this game. Flaws and all, I think the game holds up pretty well today. I definitely enjoyed returning to the game for sure. And sounds like Joe. This is one of this is actually one of the only games you're actually able to finish. So
yeah,
congratulations, like the ending. I mean, to be fair, we cover a lot of RPGs in this podcast, and RPGs are much longer games. Both of us are super busy, so yeah. I mean, I get that. But what was your total playtime that you clocked in?
Jeez, because I use save states and everything else, that helps save some time. I want to say it was just about 6, maybe 7 hours.
That's not bad, actually. Yeah. I mean, for first time playthrough, sure, that works.
Yeah.
We are taking a break from this next time to cover a more lighter, easier game, probably for both of our sanities at this point. We're looking at a gambling game, Vegas Stakes, which I've never actually played before. So I never saw the point. I never saw the point. Playing those on the console back in the day. So I'm curious to see how this one. I'm curious to see how this one holds up.
Yeah, my mom was always one of those who would buy the gambling games for whatever system it was that we owned. So this is just one of those things like we always had.
There definitely is a market out there for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Those games. Those games start around today, but usually mobile format. But there are still computer console versions you can buy if you want to. But
yep, for sure.
So that's going to be covered. Yeah, so we actually finish up the year with of the year looking ahead with more lighter titles to cover. So Probably for Joe's sanity, I'm sure he appreciates that. But considering how many really meaty games it covered as of late. But
yeah, plus as we spoke off, Mike, Dragon Quest III is coming out, so it's like, and I'm back.
Plus the holidays.
Yep, the holidays. I'm back into
everything else. So
yep, I'm back into the Pixel remaster. So yeah, time is definitely a commodity right now.
Alrighty, so as always, we appreciate you listening to the podcast. Give us a few minutes of your day. If you have any questions, feedback, comments, suggestions, etc., feel free to leave them on our Facebook page, or you can also send me an email directly to the SNES Podcast @yahoo.com. Joe, where can they reach you at? You can find me on my very public and not family-friendly Facebook. Also, you can find me at JOESUX30 on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. The Elon Musk machine. And then I also do a very non-family friendly podcast called The Radical Retro Roundup with George, who used to be a co-host on this show, who I actually killed and replaced now. And we talk a retro topic every month and go on many, many tangents on that show. And we were actually supposed to record Ninja Shadow of the Darkness this past Saturday, but George had something come up, so we were going to push that to next Saturday. So by the time you hear... is that one of those...
What's that?
Is that one of those, 80s movies back when...
No, so this is a 90s platform, a ninja game.
Oh, it's a game, okay. Right.
Yeah, from Eidos, so the same... Literally, it touts the same creators of the Tomb Raider series. Yeah, it's... I will tell you, spoiler, if you do happen to listen to both podcasts, the game is not good. I remembered it being so much better than it actually is. It's very rigid. It has not been fun to play. So there's definitely going to be a lot to talk about on the podcast about that game, but there's probably going to be more tangents than anything else, because that usually happens when we don't have a great topic to talk about.
Right. Yeah. No. No, I definitely hear you, but yeah, I don't think I've ever heard that game before. That's interesting.
Definitely look it up on YouTube. Don't play it.
Okay then. Looking forward to that when it comes out. So we'll wrap things up here. Thanks again, everybody. Stay safe, be well. We'll catch you again next time. Later, all.
Bye.
Nintendo controls 80% of the video market. But no matter how you play the game, or which game you play, things definitely have come a long way since Pac-Man.
Now you're playing with power. E.V.O.